Hi everyone, hope you're all doing great. This time I'm back with the part 2 of Application Engineer Interview Guide. In part 1, we have talked about what are the general skill set needed for application engineers, how companies evaluates and in the interview process, and how these roles are related to DevOps engineering, support engineering, or SREs, and what is the demand of the roles in the market. I would strongly suggest that you watch the part 1 for more context. In this part 2, we are going to touch base on the specific technical skill set needed and what kind of mindset is needed for the interviews, and how should we think methodically in answering any questions to increase your chances for selection. So yeah, please do watch it until the end. I'm sure it's going to help you a lot in cracking the interview. Yeah, without a further ado, let's get started. Now, what technical skills are expected? In any engineering role, hands on experience on the OOPS based language is recommended, and any scripting language for application engineering roles, scripting is needed because they're going to be involved in the troubleshooting, root cause analysis, or automations. Scripting based technology is going to help them a lot in their role as well. And of course they have to know any OOPS based language because they might need to work on any backend services or client side services. So having the knowledge on them will help them to navigate in troubleshooting any issues and all. Yeah, of course, for clearing the interviews, data structures and algorithms are expected. Like you should know at least the basic data structures like arrays, strings, hash maps, and some algorithms like sorting, two-pointer techniques, searching, string-based manipulations, and all these are evaluated in the initial rounds of the interview. And yeah, this role is basically more stressed upon the troubleshooting root cause analysis part, like how do they troubleshoot the Linux based system. As you know, majority of the services use the Linux based machines to run their services. So having a skills on troubleshooting those systems, how do you evaluate the memory, CPU usage, fundamental networking knowledge is recommended before attending this interview. And of course multiple teams are migrating to the cloud these days. Um, so having a knowledge on cloud, any cloud like AWS, GCP would be really helpful to increase your chances. um, yeah, experience working with the large scale systems like or a distributed system, especially if you're going to be working for a system that working for a team that going to own multiple backend services. Having a skill to perform a deep dive on this large scale systems, providing a systematic troubleshooting experience on those areas going to help a lot in clearing the interview. And as I said, the root cause analysis, the cross team collaboration, and ownership. Ownership is really stressed more in this role. Like, how do you take ownership of a task or an issue? How do you drive that to the resolution? How methodically you do that? All these are evaluated in the interview process. Now, what's the required debugging mindset for this role? So, an interviewer will ask you a troubleshooting or root cause analysis question. So, the chances of you to be considered among all other interview candidates is is basically in how do you approach the problem. So that's what sets you apart, right? So some of the important things to remember before answering, like um, the first step is going to be like how you're going to reproduce this issue. So that would be the initial step for you. How frequently this issue is occurring, what are the scenarios that we can use to reproduce this issue, and if we are able to reproduce that issue, what is the system flow, what is the flow um, of that issue, like what specific classes, what specific packages are involved, what specific user scenarios are involved to reproduce that issue. So the second step would be to know that, and once we are able to reproduce and system understand the system flow, we're going to go about making it more explicit, right? So how do you do that? By adding debug logs, or maybe increasing the logging statements, making it more verbose, or we can use the IDE's features like putting a breakpoints, performing debugging, right? So this is how we make the issue more explicit. And yeah, finding an issue is one part, and providing a fix is another part, right? We have to analyze, if I introduce this new change, will it going to affect another downstream dependencies? So that part of analysis should also be included in your answer to the interview, right? Interviewer. um, of course, your overall mindset is going to be evaluated, not just reproducing, finding, and dependency analysis. What are the best practices that you're following, like in terms of testing, right? Like you have introduced some test. What kind of test will you do? Will it be integration test? How are you going to evaluate whether your change is good to move that to production? How are you going to ensure that it's not going to impact the customers? So testing part is critical in your debugging mindset, especially when you answer. And of course you need to think proactively also, right? Like what are the monitoring mechanism you're going to introduce, so that you can identify this issue beforehand and take action before it impacts more customers, right? So these are some of the important points that we need to keep in mind when we are debugging an issue, and this mindset is going to help you to set apart from other interview candidates. Now let's look into how a good answer should sound like in the interview, right? So, so an interview asked a question. If we know the answer, we will jump into answer and answer the question. But a good response always starts with the clarifying questions. We do not want to assume anything before providing a solution, right? So, for example, a customer can't log in. So, what could be the issue? It could be multiple issues, and we want to know actual context of it, right? Like, what is the device type? Are they using any specific browser? What are the error messages? Uh, uh, and how they are affected, like whether others are affected, how many people are affected. So this clarifying questions actually helps you to narrow down the issue and helps some to bring some kind of clarity in the diagnosis process. Like it is similar to um, how a doctor analyzes a patient, right? They want to remove the obvious causes, like they'll ask different clarifying questions. Are you facing this? Are you having a cough? So these are all the clarifying thoughts we need to put first before jumping into answering a question. Now a strong answer is going to evaluate the problem from multiple perspectives, right? For example, if a customer can't log in, there could be multiple issues, right? Permission issues, security related issues. There might be credential issues, network and connectivity problems. So there are multiple causes, and it's good to have the answer considering all these scenarios so that we can provide a better solution. And most of this multiple perspectives going to get clarified when you ask the clarifying questions in the first step itself, right? So strong answers should always evaluate from the multiple perspectives. And answering a question should we go in a structured and a methodical way, right? So we just don't want to say, hey, the browser is slow. It could be backend issue. We cannot just directly show that. So we have to go in a methodical way. Like we want to rule out the obvious causes. Like the same example I've given as a doctor and patient, a doctor will try to eliminate all the obvious causes, and then they come up with the final solution and come up with a prescription, right? So similarly, if for example a website is loading slow, we want to eliminate the obvious causes, like internet is slow, whether the client machine have the enough resources to accept that request or process that request. So once the obvious causes are eliminated, we will go more deeper. So this is what deep diving comes in. We look into the browser developer tools, we inspect the request timings, response size, other network latencies, and we want to check whether whether any specific um, database queries are causing, and we can do that by evaluating the service logs, and we'll dive deeper into the application logic. So yeah, so we'll go into layer fashion. So this kind of approach will also help the interviewer understand your process of answering, and it kind of brings confidence for the interviewer as well, that whatever you're going to answer, you're going to go from the um, you know um, from the ground zero and then arrive to the solution, right? So any good answer will not stop with the fix itself. Like, they're going to verify and they're going to think proactively. They want to avoid the recurrence, right? So an answer should also include how you're going to verify the same thing that talked about, like how do you test your fix, and what mechanisms you're going to implement to avoid the recurrence of this issue again. So that gives the confidence that you are a person who's going to think as a complete picture, right? So what are the some sample interview questions asked? And these questions I have gathered from my own personal experience. Like, the questions can be like the user experiencing slow response times, occasional failures while using the website. How would you determine whether the issue originates from the backend web servers, their configurations, or their interaction with other services? Describe step-by-step process. So in this question, the interviewer is going to expect how you're going to go methodically in answering this question. Like, they're going to check your knowledge on the backend services. They're going to check your knowledge on the networking part. They're going to check your knowledge on attention to detail. So a lot of skills are evaluated with this question. Similarly, your troubleshooting skills can also be tested by a question like, your team has noticed a sharp spike in CPU usage for a critical backend service during peak hours. This has started causing slower response times and occasional timeouts for user requests. How would you start by your investigation? So some keywords we need to be keep a note of during the peak hours. So these are something the interview want to know. How do you respond to a critical situation? And at the same time, they're going to check your troubleshooting skills as well. Like, do you have knowledge on how do you handle CPU spikes, and how would you start investigation? Again, here your methodical approach will be tested. And again, these application engineer roles are going to do some automation. They're going to have some responsibility to do automations. So they're going to test you on your scripting skills. Like, for example, we have to create a log rotation script. Like, if an application or a backend service is performing, there going to be a lot of interactions between the clients, and that going to create a lot of application logs, right? And over the time, the logs size increases. It can go huge, and it will consume the CPU resources. So we want to have some mechanism like how to um, rotate these logs, how to archive these logs, and ensure that only certain time duration backup is maintained, like maybe 30 to 60 days. So these kind of questions can come up in the interview. So it's good to touch base on the scripting knowledge, networking skills, troubleshooting skills, RCS skills, and how do you handle critical situations. Yeah, these are some sample interview questions. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the content, and I am hoping this video will be helpful for you to crack the application engineer interviews. Yeah, please do like, share, and subscribe. I'll be coming up with more such useful content. Thank you. Thank you all.